Hare Krishna, Sananda Prabhu.
He's muted.
You're muted right now. You're muted, Prabhu. There you go.
I'm trying to figure out how to change my stupid name.
No, that's all right. You don't have a stupid name. It's a good name.
You just click on those three dots up in the corner.
Yeah, that's what I just did. Rename, yes.
And you get a long list of choices.
Prabhu, I think maybe you can show the posters and then start off with the videos.
Dashrath Sutta Prabhu is joining in right now. Hare Krishna, Dashrath Sutta Prabhu, welcome.
Wow, Brahmadas. I mean, the real original Brahmadas bus leader
The original.
from Pittsburgh. Wow, I've been looking for you.
Yeah.
How you doing?
All right, well, you found me.
Yeah. You have any recordings of those songs you wrote back in the glory days?
Oh, the revolutionary songs? Are you
Yeah.
talking about the revolutionary songs?
That's right.
No, I don't. You know, I that period of my life, I just let that go.
Good.
But every now and then one comes into my head.
Where are you now?
I'm in Northern California.
Good. All right.
Jai Sunanda, Haribol.
Hare Krishna, who's that?
Sarvopama.
Oh, Haribo.
I'll never forget Vishnu John putting Radha Damodar into my van. I had a Volkswagen bus. Vishnu John sort of reclined on the little bed type of thing I had there, and the murtis were placed carefully on the seat. And as I drove to the park, he was singing some beautiful song, and I just was in ecstasy. And I just made sure I wasn't driving too fast because I didn't want to see Vishnu John or anything else go flying. But I felt so fortunate. We arrived at the park, and they had a great kirtan group. It was sort of one of the first, what I would call kirtan bands at the time.
Vishnu John Swami would be playing harmonium and singing. And then we would play the various instruments that he had accumulated over the course of time, like the Esraj that you see Sri Ram here playing, the Ektar, which no one in ISKCON at that time was playing. And then we'd have various sorts of drums and percussive instruments that the other brahmacharis would play or guests would play that were usually musicians. That was basically what we did. Prabhupada was extremely pleased because it was a devotee-making program. There are many brahmacharis that came as a result of our traveling, preaching, and presenting the chanting of Hare Krishna and the distribution of BTG magazines and other books. Secondly, it was the way Vishnu John Swami had arranged it. The deities were, of course, were always captivating. The exotic instruments, his deep and melodious voice, and his sheer enthusiasm for chanting the holy name. People literally were captivated upon seeing this whole presentation.
Giuseppe does nothing in battle. The mount from Zero Dawn.
Hare Krishna. Welcome everybody to today's wonderful program about the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. Vanchakalpa Turvascha Kripasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanitya Vaishnavibhya Namo Namah. I'm just going to read a short intro. By the way, my name is Nityananda Das. I'll be the host for today's program. I'm put up as co-host. So in the 70s, there was a highly visible Sankirtan force in America called the Radha Damodar Sankirtan Party. Buses full of devotees, primarily brahmacharis, would crisscross regions to mercifully distribute the transcendental literature given to us by Srila Prabhupada to take us back home, back to Krishna. So many young men sacrificed their time and energy in this great service to Srila Prabhupada and to their lordships, Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna. And they certainly reaped huge karmic benefits. Radha Damodar Sankirtan buses, 1975 at Northwestern University, Chicago, with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's sons included Vishnujan Swami, Tamal Krishna Goswami, Tripurari Swami, Visheshika Prabhu, Brahmananda Prabhu, Satsarup Goswami, and so many other exalted devotees. In 1975, Srila Prabhupada was in Chicago at the same time as the Radha Damodar Sankirtan buses. It was a glorious time with their guru, Srila Prabhupada, and it was decided to take a group picture. So all the devotees gathered at Northwestern University, and the buses were strategically parked at Northwestern University parking lot for a stunning picture. This is the introduction I was given. Just 1 minute. I just want to see if any participants have come in. All right. So we're going to start with hearing from Kavichandra Maharaj. And before we start, Maharaj, I'll just give an introduction for you. Here it is. His Holiness Kavichandra Swami met the Hare Krishna devotees in 1967 and was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1971. He joined the temple in Tucson, Arizona, and since that time, he has served in various capacities in the United States and around the world. Some of these services include, from 1973 until 1977, itinerant selling of Srila Prabhupada's books to libraries, universities, and individuals, including leading a book distribution team called the Radha Damodar Sankirtan Party. preaching Krishna consciousness in Fiji, filling in as the general manager for the Radha Ras Bihari Temple in Juhu, India, and as a temple president in Tokyo, Japan. In Japan, in 1982, His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj took his sannyas vows, lifelong celibacy, and a vow to fully serve his spiritual master with mind, body, and words. 5 years later, in 1987, Maharaj started to serve as a GBC member for Japan. Gradually, his GBC responsibilities expanded from Japan to culturally diverse places such as Thailand, Indochina, Indonesia, Greece, and West Africa. His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj is also a committee member of the GBC Executive Committee, ISKCON Law Committee, and Revision Committee. His Holiness Kavichandra Maharaj has a special interest in book distribution and Harinam Sankirtan, and he writes of his faith in Srila Prabhupada on the topic of Harinam. He invests time in devotee care by writing articles, participating in conferences, and vigorously encouraging others to put effort into making it a priority. As a traveling preacher and initiating spiritual master of many disciples in his GBC regions and beyond, he naturally sees the whole world as his family. He does have biological family members as well, a daughter, Mona Aim, and her two daughters, Grace and Faith, who regularly attend temple functions in Los Angeles. Welcome, Maharaj. Please give us the benefit of your association now. Maharaj is internet now. Asking you might unmute, Maharaj, before you speak.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj.
You put a lot of information there, and it's not exactly right. I have to correct it. Anyway, exactly what would you like to hear?
Shabia?
You have some kind of a plan, right?
Well, our plan was that you'd speak about the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party, and because this is Maharaj's 20th disappearance anniversary that we're celebrating, and his 50th sannyas anniversary, and 75th Vyasa Puja anniversary, we thought you might bring him in some way.
Okay. Om Gana Timiranda Syaga Nandana Shalakaya Chaksura Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shite Tanya Manobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam. No. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesha Sunyavari Paschacha Desatarani Manchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnave Vyo Namaha. Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gora Tueshe Namaha. Panchatatmakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhakta Bhattaram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. So the Radha Damodar party started with Vishnujan. I don't know exactly, but he took Radha Damodar from New Vrindavan and took off with them and started doing that program of just going and chanting and going to state fairs and wherever he could and bringing Radha Damodar out. They had a special mood. Radha Krishna deities normally don't go out in public on Harinam, but Prabhupada said they could. Then when Tamal Krishnaraj came back from India, he wanted to preach in America, and he was, I don't think he had any exact plan. I remember when he came through Chicago, and when he first landed, and it was all exciting, you know. Then he teamed that back up with Vishnu John, and Vishnu John had a small group on that old bus. He might have had one traveling book distribution party. And Tamal Krishna saw this could be really big. He thought that he told Vishnu John he could be supposed to be making devotees. So they parked in Berkeley, and 1 month they were there, and they would do the kirtan, and Tamal Krishnamaj would Hawkeye look around for anybody who seemed to be liking it or liking the prasadam, and he would start preaching to them. And they made something like 17 new bhaktas in 1 month. Many of them are still around. I don't know all of them. Dhruva Maharaj was one of them. Maybe Brahma Prabhu knows more. Okay. Memory is short. So, and his he would preach. That was a hippie time, and everybody was like, it's all one, and you could chant anything. You're just hypnotizing yourself by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And he would annihilate them. Of course, he was trained up in India with the real Mayavadis who have scriptural references and everything. But I remember one thing he would tell them. He said, I only want happiness. That's all I care about. So if you have something better than what I'm offering here, then I'll go with you. And no one ever would. Nobody ever could come up with the idea that they really had something great that they wanted to try to promote. So anyway, he made devotees. Sometimes they just, and then they started traveling, and of course, then they were getting devotees out of the temples and brahmacharis, and not just brahmacharis, guests. One famous one was in Chicago, and the temple president there was, always worried about money. Temples have so much expenses. So he presented a bill to Tamal Krishnamaj, electricity and water and different things. So he just said, okay, gave it to the treasurer. Then he wrote up another one. He said, you owe me so much for Vishnu John's kirtans, and you owe so much for my lectures, and came out even or something. But there was one guest was there, and the temple president said, you can talk to him. I don't have time, I need money. So they started talking to the guy, and that was Shrikant Prabhu. And he was a pharmaceutical seller, and he surrendered. He had $10,000 cash. He handed it over. Vishnu John put it on the altar and closed the door. They packed up the bus, drove to his house, packed his bags, and went off down the road. So they made a few like that. So it grew up to be quite big, like 75 or 80 brahmacharis. The picture you saw was the original buses there. Then the other three were all new buses. I had one, Brahma, and somebody else, maybe Janardhan. And so we're installing the deities. Tamal Krishnaraj had been saving all the new devotees for initiation by Prabhupada all at once. So there was a huge initiation. I wasn't in that picture because Vishnu John told me to set up the whole yajna and left me all by myself. I had no idea. I'd never even seen a yajna, I think. Somehow I did it. and then it had this big initiation, installation of the deities. And there were some humorous things there. On the bus, it was quite narrow, and usually devotees would pay their obeisances with their head towards the deities, because otherwise you had to cross the whole bus and it was pretty tight. So, and they would dance and couldn't jump because the ceiling was low and they'd bump their head. The ceilings on all the buses were cracked. And so they would dance like this, like doing a twist, you know. So these boys were coming up and they were paying obeisances to Prabhupada with their feet to the deities, and they were paying obeisances to the deities with their feet to Prabhupada. Prabhupada looked at Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he said, "Who trained them?" and laughed. And then in the dancing, you know, they were still dancing like that, although the temple had a 2-story ceiling in Chicago. So Prabhupada at the end, he said, "You should dance like this, like Lord Chaitanya, and not like this." He laughed. But so the deity dressing, none of us had ever dressed deities before. The clothes didn't fit. So it was going really slow. And Prabhupada, you know, got a little tired. He said, "You know, can I go now?" So we just opened the curtains and got everything. And we got on the buses. That's when I joined the party. I joined a little bit before that in San Francisco. I didn't exactly join. I was quite happy in book distribution in the airport in Philadelphia. And I had always thought, I'll do this my whole life. I'll never, you know, manage or do any of this Maya stuff. And somehow in Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I have yet to know why, but he somehow was like me. In spite of, I had nothing like him at all, total opposite nature. And so he wanted me to come on the bus party. Actually wanted the whole Tripurari's whole BB2 library party or book distribution party, but he started out with me. So they told me to come to San Francisco, and I checked the airline and there was only first class seats. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to go, you know. And they called me up, Bishop John and Tamal Krishna, and said, you know, I said, no, there's no seats on the flights. Everything's filled, only first class. If we give you first class, will you come? And I just couldn't get out of it, so I went. We were in San Francisco for a few days, went out for book distribution, trying to teach the new boys, got arrested. And then we took off and we went to Denver. Prabhupada was in Denver. Brahma Prabhu will remember this. So he asked us to fix up the bookkeeping for the Radha Damodar bus. And it was a total mess for, I don't know how far back, you know. So we had to do that. After that, we were always on the spot. You have to make your accounts perfect. I wasn't very good at it. Anyway, so then there was 4 buses. Gradually got to be more. It grew up to be like 5 buses and I don't know, something like 70 vans going out, different, you know, van groups. Gradually, the book distributors and the buses were hardly ever in the same place, except to pick up books. The buses were filled up with books. We couldn't even sit up practically in the bus when we filled them up with books.
Looks like Raj is frozen. Raj, can you hear us? Well, maybe we might have to move on with you, Sananda Prabhu. Let me introduce you in case Maharaj comes back and he can continue. Otherwise, you can speak at least. We don't lose time. So His Grace Sananda Prabhu joined ISKCON as a full-time devotee in 1972 in New York at the age of 17 and was initiated by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada that same year. His overall services over the years include Harinam Sankirtan, book distribution, college preaching, temple management, Indian life membership program management, Rath Yatra organization, public relations, prasad preparation and distribution, and the opening of a number of restaurants. He joined His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj and His Holiness Vishnu Jana Swami Maharaj and the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party in 1975 in Detroit, Michigan, and remained with the party until it was disbanded in 1978. He rejoined His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj in St. Louis and later helped with Govinda's restaurant in Austin, Texas from 1979 to 1980. Moved to Dallas Temple in 1980 and remained there till 1988. He assisted His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj in the opening of Kalachandji's restaurant in 1982 and was the head chef and co-manager.
Haribol.
Okay.
I got cut off.
Okay, go ahead. You can speak. I'll introduce the.
Yeah, because it's only been like not even 10 minutes. So anyway, I addressed deities myself, and then I found out later, that Tamal Krishna was bringing.
Oh boy. Looks like it's frozen again. Looks like Maharaj's connection is not very good. So should we continue with you, Sananda Prabhu? All right, I think I'm going to continue with you and see what happens. So again, I was saying he assisted His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj in the opening of Kalachandji's restaurant in 1982 and was the head chef and the co-manager. Started Magic Lotus Catering to serve traveling vegetarian music celebrities performing in Dallas. Currently, he's serving as the TOVP Communications Director and Fundraiser since 2013. Please do us the honors. Sananda Prabhu, you can unmute yourself. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hi, Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. It's so nice to see Brahmadas again. And
Feelings are mutual.
I have two photos.
Hi.
I have two photos from the bus we were on. One of them's right in front of me here. Maybe I can even show it. No, that's not from that. But I have two photos from the bus where we were chanting in the bus. And since Kavi Chandra Maharaj was talking about dancing in the bus, we were actually dancing in the bus. I was playing the mridanga and you were there. So anyway.
And they're on your Facebook page, I believe.
Yeah.
I saw them on your Facebook page. You sent me one or something.
I sent you one some time ago, yeah.
Yeah, they're wonderful. Thank you very much.
Hi. But I'm going to go kind of along the lines of what Saibya, if that's the correct pronunciation for her name, Saibya Mataji kind of outlined what we should speak about. got about 20 minutes or so, as long as my internet connection lasts. When and how did I join the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party? Well, I was part of the Henry Street Temple in New York. As was mentioned, I joined in 1972 after finishing high school. And that year, 1975, the Henry Street Temple was in the process of moving to the new temple on 55th Street in Manhattan. And I was sent out on traveling Sankirtan. I went with Yogesh Chandra and Ruchi and a couple of other devotees, Bhadra Sen. And when I returned, the temple had completed moving to the 55th Street Temple. And I found out that I was now part of the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party. At least I don't remember being asked if I wanted to be, but that was okay with me. And at that point, I met Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Vishnu Jan Maharaj, and they had established at the 55th Street Temple, they had established an office for the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party. And the first thing, this is late 75. So the first thing that we did, or that I recall, was we traveled to Detroit, Michigan for the Christmas marathon. And it was a big marathon. We stayed in the temple. I remember all the brahmacharis were staying on one of the floors of the temple. And at that time, Vishnu Jan Maharaj taught me a few things. He taught me how to cook his famous malpuras. Most people know malpuras as like these fluffy, round, donutty sort of balls that are floating in yogurt, flavored yogurt. But his malpuras were a little different. They were flat like pancakes, not soft like pancakes, but they were flat, cooked on a griddle, and then soaked in strawberry malpura. And every day, the devotees would come back from distribution, book distribution, or whatever they were doing, and they would have a prasadam, which would normally include these wonderful strawberry malpuras. The second thing I learned from Vishnu Jan Maharaj was how to play the harmonium. He personally taught me, took me to some of his programs and showed me all of his riffs. And since then, I play mostly his style of harmonium when I do kirtans. Now, after that marathon completed, Vishnu Jan and Tamal Krishna Maharaj went to India for the Gurpurnim festival. That is the year that Vishnu Jan Maharaj disappeared. So outside of that few months of association with Vishnu Jan Maharaj, I didn't really have any other association with him, since he did not return and no one really knows what happened to him. But Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party continued. And at that point, I think I first joined Mahamuni's bus. Unfortunately, he's not here in this group. Mahamuni was a wonderful devotee, and we traveled and distributed books and prasadam programs, festivals. And one very significant thing, which was an important part of my life, is we, in 1976, we went to the New York Ratha Yatra. And that gave me the opportunity to actually meet Srila Prabhupada. And this was a famous episode because Prabhupada wanted to go to Gitanagari farm. And the best way that the idea that had come up was that he should go on one of the buses. So Mahamuni's bus was selected. And since I had the experience of cooking on a bus, which is a whole other discussion, you know, the lifestyle on these buses, we could talk about that for a couple of hours probably, how we lived on these buses and took our baths in the bathroom, and everything was in the bus, kirtans, Mangal Arti, classes. So having that experience, I was selected to be Prabhupada's cook on the way to Gitanagari. The story is a little long, so I won't get into the whole thing, but Prabhupada was sick. I was asked to just bring fruit. So we left very early in the morning, just before Mangal Arti. And Mangal Arti was actually on the bus with Prabhupada seated. There's a video, a couple of videos of that. I have photos of that too. And Vakreshwara Pandit was the driver. And what happened was, after Mangal Arti, then there was japa and class. I was asked to prepare a big fruit plate for Prabhupada and the other devotees that were there, which included Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Adi Keshava Maharaj and Tripurari Swami. They were all in the bus with Prabhupada, and I was in the back to cook. Now, Prabhupada made a very unusual request. He wanted to have pakoras for breakfast. Normally people don't have pakoras for breakfast, but Prabhupada was a little sick, and there was a particular type of pakora that he wanted green chili pakoras, whole green chili pakoras, because the heat of the chilies would help with the mucus and other problems with his cold. Now, I wasn't prepared to cook anything. I was told Prabhupada is sick. So I only had one head of cauliflower. And they said, go ahead and make it. So if you can picture in your mind or in your thoughts, a converted Greyhound bus traveling down the highway and with a kitchen inside of it. And I have
Sananda Prabhu. Oh my God. We're having some tough luck today. All right. Prabhu, yeah, you're on the screen fortuitously. I'm going to.
I can talk, and then Sunanda can just break in.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, so please let me introduce you. So His Grace Brahma Prabhu joined ISKCON in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in summer of 1972 at the age of 19. He served in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and with the BBT distribution team before being recruited in 1975 by His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami to serve as a bus leader of the newly expanded Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. Under the auspices of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami, Brahma Prabhu and his crew of merry brahmacharis traveled the United States for 3 years, presenting Krishna consciousness through literature distribution and bhajan festivals at colleges, churches, and county fairs. When the festival bus program ended in 1978, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj called Brahma Prabhu and a number of other former Radha Damodar leaders to assist him at the newly opened ISKCON Temple Hotel Complex in Mumbai, in Bombay, now Mumbai. In Bombay, Brahma Prabhu served as life membership director and on the BBT Library Party. After Bombay, Brahma Prabhu joined the famous Tribhuvanath Prabhu in his covert Middle East preaching program. For Brahma Prabhu, that assignment ended with arrest and deportation from Lebanon. Back in Dallas, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami encouraged Brahma Prabhu to take a festival bus on the road again. This adventure concluded with the boys finally parking the bus in Austin, Texas, where they established a preaching center cum restaurant named Govinda's Supernatural Foods. That was the last ride of the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. Later, Brahma Prabhu became president of the ISKCON Temple in Portland, Oregon. Presently, Brahma Prabhu and his wife, Leela, are innkeepers in Northern California. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. Sunanda, are you hearing or are you back? Are you
I am
frozen?
No, I'm
Well,
never-
just break in. You just.
I'm fallen, but not frozen.
Please continue, Sananda Prabhu.
Okay, yeah,
No, you go ahead.
I'll continue and then, yeah. So I was explaining, this time my internet went off. That's what happened. So I got it back on. So I was explaining,
Yeah.
Prabhupada ate the entire cauliflower worth of pakoras. Now, the cream of this story is that after Prabhupada ate all the pakoras and I came out to clean the plates from all the sannyasis and devotees who were there, and at that point, Tamal Krishna Maharaj did something which has endeared me to him. He introduced me to Srila Prabhupada. He said Prabhupada was I was standing, Prabhupada was on my left, he was on the right. And he said, Prabhupada, this is the cook, Sunanda Das. And I was flabbergasted. I really didn't know what to say. I just looked at Prabhupada and I said, oh, you like them? And Prabhupada sat back with a big smile on his face. And yes, very good. So that was a wonderful story. That opportunity, Tamal Krishna Maharaj introduced me to him. Now, later on, after Detroit and then the Christmas Marathon in 1976, Vishnu Jan Maharaj left. Tamal Krishna Maharaj didn't return, as I remember. Yes, then I became part of Brahma's bus. Is that right? Yeah, you can
Hallelujah.
unmute because I'm going to go back and forth with you a little bit here.
All right, fine.
Perhaps.
The
maybe.
best, you being on my bus was the best part of my life.
Well, we had a good rapport. There are a lot of good stories there. I'm not a good storyteller or even rememberer, but I do remember those days with you on the bus and going to do various festivals. But I remember very specifically, we would go to yoga ashrams. And there was even one hippie community that we went to somewhere or other, I think in Texas. But we also had nicknames for all these swamis and yogis, which I'm sure you will recall. Swami Snatch of the Dollar and Yogi something or other.
Yeah, Yogi Amrit Desai, we met him. We did a
Armpits
festival
stay
with
dry.
him. Armpits stayed dry, that's right. And were you with me when we went to Yogi Subabu in Ohio? Or was that before you?
That must have been before me. I don't remember that one.
There was a yoga studio called the Ghetto Palace. It was an old theater that was converted into a yoga society of some sort, and we did a festival there.
So those were great programs because we used to chant, and we prepared prasadam and distributed prasadam and preached. And then all the festivals, college festival programs that we did, those were wonderful preaching days, all along the same lines as Vishnu Jan Swami and his program. And this went on till about 1977. And I don't remember all the details, but I'm just giving you a little snapshots of history to the end of the Radha Damodar party that I recall. Is 1977, I ended up in St. Louis. Did your bus, the whole bus, go there? To St. Louis?
77?
Yes.
Yeah, 77. We were there. We were in Bloomington. Yeah. I don't remember it specifically, but the buses were still on the road in 77.
Okay. Yeah, because I do recall I was at the St. Louis Temple, and this was another very moving time because Tripurari Swami was there and many devotees were there at the temple. And this was at the time of Prabhupada's departure. And I recall very vividly that day, we were all, I don't know if you were there or not, but we were all in extremely moving kirtan in the temple room, chanting.
Right,
and
I remember it.
You were there, okay. We were there chanting and dancing
Yeah.
intensely. And Tripurari Swami was not there. He was on the phone getting the news. Sorry. So he came into the temple room, and we could see from the look on his face that we could understand Prabhupada has left. And that was 1977. And then 78, I recall going to Harrisburg. And at that time in Harrisburg, all the buses, all the devotees came, I recall, or most of them. And the basically the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party ended there, that as it was established in general. Now, I didn't know about, I did go from there back to St. Louis to join Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and then ended up, and then now when I'm thinking about it, I remember you going with your bus from to Austin, and then we opened the restaurant there, Govinda Supernatural Foods Restaurant. But I don't think there were any more traveling buses or traveling parties at that point.
Well, we went down there in the bus. We went from Dallas. We left from Dallas in the bus. You, myself, Drista Hasigrami, and some others, Chaitanya Chandra maybe. And we went around Texas, and then we parked in Austin, and we started that restaurant. And you were the cook, and that was the last ride. I like to say that's the last ride of the Radha Damodar party, because Tamal Krishna Maharaj had called me back from India. He'd asked me to come back from India to take a bus on the road again. So that's how he enticed me to come back, because I wasn't inclined, but he asked me to take a bus on the road again. And so he gave me the bus in Dallas, and then we were off.
Yeah, well, that starts another conversation on another Zoom call, because from there it goes to Dallas, and for me anyway, it goes to Dallas and Kalachandji's restaurant and everything else that happened in Dallas. So as far as the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party, that's really about all that I can say at this point, limited time. So you may continue, Brahma.
Oh, I may continue? Okay.
Now so, yes,
All right.
I pass
I see.
over to you now.
I see, Nanda. I feel very honored to be invited to speak. I just want you to know I haven't spoken in front of an ISKCON congregation for 42 years. So I'm very touched that I was asked to speak. I was actually tickled pink when Saibya contacted me and asked me to speak. Before I start talking about Goswami and Vishnu John, I want to offer my respects to Durashaya. Is he out here somewhere? I heard he was going to be on. There he is. Haribo, Haribo. Durashaya. He is an example of a person who has had immense bhakti sukriti, because he was in Memphis. I don't think he had ever met the devotees before, and I can be corrected here, but we had a little preaching center in Memphis, and we had an article in the newspaper. And the article in the newspaper said, Hindu monks tilling vegetables on South 3rd. I have a copy of it in my files. So the article went out in the newspaper. He saw the article in the newspaper. He came to the temple. We had a chat, and pretty much he never left. I think that's kind of how it went. And he went back to get his stuff to tie up loose ends. And then he came back and joined the devotees, and his girlfriend came looking for him, but I scared her away somehow. And he was with us for the next year or so before he stayed in Dallas. So when a person, that's just a prime example of like Prabhupada said, there are devotees all over the world, and the Sankirtan movement is just coming around to pick them up. So in that sense, he was just a prime example of a person who had the bhakti sukriti to just take it up without any kind of introduction, so to speak. So my obeisances are to Durashaya and of course the Sunanda, who did such great service on my bus, fantastic kirtan leader, always in a great mood, no problems whatsoever, and a great cook. And do you remember when you burned yourself with the ghee on the bus, Sunanda?
I certainly do. I still have the scar.
You still have the scars. Yeah. So we cooked on the bus and there were accidents that happened, but in general, everything went great. So I was asked to talk about how I met Vishnu John Maharaj and Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And I met him at different times. I met Vishnu John Maharaj when I joined in Pittsburgh in 1972. I was a new bhakta. I was there for about, I don't know, a month or so. And Vishnu John's bus came through. It was 2 buses, big blue school buses, I believe. And he was doing the road show at that time. He had a program called the First Transcendental Exposition. And basically they were putting on a rock opera. At that time, Jesus Christ Superstar was going on, and he was putting on a rock opera in a concert hall in Pittsburgh. And it was a big concert hall. Big entertainers played there. It was run by the Shriners. It's called the Syrian Mosque. And so it probably held about 3,000 people. So he came through with the rock opera, and they put on a festival, and they put on festivals all around town, and they put on this concert at the Syrian Mosque. So that's when I got to know Vishnu John Maharaj. He was in the Pittsburgh temple for a couple of months, and Prabhupada came and saw the rock opera, and spoke at the Rock Opera. And then Vishnu John left from there to New York. Some promoter had seen the Rock Opera and wanted to make it professional. So that's what happened. So Vishnu John went to New York, and then the whole Rock Opera thing fell apart. And he went off on his own bus, and he went south to Florida. So he went off to Florida, and then when I was on Traveling Sankirtan, I used to go there and I would meet him, hang around with him, do service down there, and listen to his chanting and his lectures. And that's how I met Vishnu John Maharaj. So I met Tamal Krishna Maharaj maybe a couple of years later in San Francisco. I was with Tripurari Maharaj on the BBT party, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Vishnu John came through at that time. So I told this story. I told this story in an article called "Memories of Tamal Krishna Maharaj." It got around, and it was on Dundavat's and other websites. But basically, I came back from Sankirtan, and I going to take a shower, and Vishnu John Maharaj was already in the shower, and he was soaping up, and he saw me, and he said, "Brahmadas, how did you get away from Rupanuga and Mahendra? Did you know that we wanted you to be in charge of a Radha Damodar bus?" And I said, "What? What are you talking about? I never heard of any of this." He said, "No, I contacted Rupanuga and we told him we wanted you to be put in charge of a bus, but he said he had plans for you. So how did you get away?" And I said, "Well, I never heard any of this. I just asked Mahendra if I could go with Tripurari Swami, and he said, fine, go ahead." So I went off with Tripurari Swami, and I've been doing the airports, and we're here in San Francisco. And he said, "So Goswami, you need to talk to Goswami because he wants you to be in charge of the bus." Well, one of the new buses. Well, this was in the shower room. We were both stripped down to our underwear. He was in the shower, taking the shower, and I was about ready to get into the shower. And then I said to him, "Well, what would I do if I joined Tamal Krishna Maharaj and you?" And he said, "You would be the spider." I said, "The spider?" And he said, "What do you mean? What do you mean the spider?" And he said, "The chanting, the way Vishnu John Maharaj talked was very dramatic." And he said, "The chanting weaves a web, and all the conditioned souls are caught on the web. And then you, as the spider, will go out from your lair on the bus, and you will talk to all the souls caught on the web, and take the ones who are most interested, the ones who are ready for Krishna, back to the bus and make them shining new devotees for Prabhupada." And then he leaned back in the shower, and the water was coming down on his head, and he went, "Radha Damodar ki jai." So I just stood there with my mouth open. I was like, wow. And then he said, "You have to talk to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. We want you on the bus." So then he left. I took my shower, and then I heard I was supposed to go and see Tamal Krishna Maharaj in his room. So I went down to see Tamal Krishna Maharaj in his room, and he was very nice to me. He offered my obeisances. He offered obeisances back, gave me a little hug. I had never met him before. I only met him by his reputation. I only knew him by his reputation and his picture in the BTG. So he's talked to me and he told me what he was doing, how he was going to have 6 buses. He had 3 on the road now. I believe Adi Keshava Maharaj had a bus, Drisman Vishnu John had a bus. And he said, there you go. And so he said to me, we want you to join the bus party. We want to put one of these buses in charge, you in charge of one of these buses. Well, I was only 22 years old, and I thought, how is it possible that I could be in charge of a bus, and I would be like with all these really great advanced souls? It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. I was still pretty immature. So I said, well, I don't know, really. I don't know if I could be in charge of a bus. And he says, well, we'll train you. And I said, well, I'm with Tripurari Maharaj. I just joined with him. He says, I'm supposed to be put in charge of the airport party here. He said, this will be a better service for you. I said, well, I don't know. And I started giving him a lot of pushback. And he countered everything that I said. And then finally he said, okay, you just think about it. And I want you to come to Prasadam on the bus tomorrow after Sankirtan. So I was, how do you want to say, a little disturbed by the whole thing. I didn't know whether I should join the bus and become the spider, or whether I should stay with Tripurari Maharaj and become the book distributor, leader of the book distributors in San Francisco. So this was on my mind. It was a great dilemma for me. And then finally, I went to the next day to the airport, and I was kind of depressed. And I couldn't sell many books. Tripurari Maharaj said, what's wrong with you? I didn't tell him. He didn't know yet. So I went the day, I did probably about half the number of books I would normally do. Normally, I sold about 30 books a day at the airport. Tripurari Maharaj would probably sell about 50. So I did about, let's say, 15 books at that day. So when I came back to have dinner with Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Vishnu Chan Maharaj on the bus, he greeted me, sat down, flattered me, told me that he had heard so much about me. And I didn't know, that Vishnu Chan had any regard for me, had any kind of serious regard for me, but apparently he's the one who suggested that I be put in charge of the bus, one of the new buses. So as we were eating, the Sankirtan party, his bus party devotees came in, and they were all new bhaktas. And as they came in to the bus, he would introduce them one by one to me, and he would say, hello, this is Bhakta so-and-so. This is Brahma Das. He's a very famous book distributor. He said, so-and-so, Das, Jimmy Das, how many books did you sell today? And so Jimmy said, well, I sold 20 books. He says, oh, very good. And then he say, Bhakta Eddie, this is Brahma Das. He's a famous book distributor. And how many books did you sell today, Bhakta Eddie? Bhakta Eddie said, well, I sold 16 books. And so the whole bus party came in, and all the devotees came in, and they told their scores, how many books they had sold. And I was sitting there listening to all this. One side of me was Vishnu Chan, the other side was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj turned to me, looked me in the face, and he said, you see this? These new devotees, they have sold almost to a man more books than you have. But neither today nor anywhere in the near future will they be qualified to be on to be in charge, put in charge of a Radha Damodar bus. He said, that's why this is the best service you can do for Prabhupada. You can take charge of a bus, go out and preach, put on festivals, and teach these boys how to sell books and be devotees. So that's the best service you can do. Do you understand that? And so I was just floored. He had completely defeated me. I had no argument. I had nothing to say. It was like when Vishnu Jan was telling me about the spider in the shower room, my mouth was just open, like, huh? And then when Tamal Krishna Maharaj was telling me, this is the best service you can do, this is the best thing you can do for Prabhupada, my mouth was just open. I had nothing to say. I had no argument. I said, fine, I'll do it. And that was how I met Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Vishnu Jan Maharaj. That's the story, and I'm sticking to it. I also have another story, how I almost quit the Radha Damodar bus party before I was put in charge of the bus, during training. So I was perhaps, the way they trained us up, or trained me up, is Vishnu Jan and Tamal Krishna Maharaj moved into the temple, and they gave me the bus, and they said, here, you're in charge, do like this, do like that, do like this. So I was trying to run the bus, and they were overseeing. And apparently everything I was doing was wrong, because Tamal Krishna Maharaj was always yelling at me. So I was a little puffed up. I wasn't used to people yelling at me. So after about a week of being in charge of the bus and training in charge of the bus, Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me, or I told Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I don't think I can work with you. You're too heavy. Yeah, it's too much for me. Too much pressure. You're always yelling. I can't take it. He says, always yelling. I says, yeah, you yell too much. I can't handle it. And he says, I yell too much. And then he started to yell at me. He says, I yell too much. I said, yeah, just like now, you yell too much. And then he says, hold on. And he started calling in devotees who were on the bus devotees, and he'd bring them in. He said, so-and-so Das, or Bhakta so-and-so, do you think I yell too much? And of course, the poor brahmachari is not gonna say, oh yeah, you yell too much, Goswami. They said, no, oh no, you yell about the right amount. You yell about the right amount. And then another devotee would come in and says, oh no, Goswami, we need it. We need to be yelled at. Otherwise we can't get it. We won't do anything. And so after he brought all those people in, and they said, oh no, he doesn't yell too much. I'm like, okay. And then he got real serious and he said, you're supposed to be put in charge of a bus. He said, so you have to be able to take it, and you have to be able to do things right and be trained to do things right. And you have to take the heat. You have to learn to take the heat. And he said, just like Prabhupada used to yell at me, Prabhupada used to yell at me like a lot. And then he gave me some examples when he was managing this or managing that in India, and Prabhupada used to yell at him. He said, I never went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, you yell too much. I said, I just did what he said. And if he yelled at me, I said, that's mercy. I'm getting mercy. That's good for my ego. Said, so don't tell me I yell too much. just try to get things done like I want them. So I said, okay, all right, you win again. So it was like the same thing as like when he brought the devotees into the bus. He said, he said, this is the service for you. He said, don't tell me I yell too much. So I said, okay, all right. So then about a week later, I was still on the fence. So I called Mahendra, my old temple president, and I told him, I said, there's too much pressure here. I don't know if I can do it. I think I want to come home. Like mommy, I like to come home. Says, I think I'd like to come home where I was really comfortable, because it's really rough here. And he said, oh, yeah, sure, come on back. And he said, should I call Tamal Krishna Maharaj? I says, well, no, I better tell him. I dread it, but I better tell him that I'm just not cut out to be a bus leader. So I went up to talk to him. So I'm talking to him, and I go up to talk to him. I said, I'm sorry, Maharaj. I'm just really not cut out to be a bus leader. There's just too much pressure. I need to go back to Mahendra where I was comfortable and where I could do service. And I'm just not up to the standard. So this time, and every time he dealt with me on he had answers for everything. So this time I was expecting him to yell at me, but he didn't. He sat me down and he said, have you read the Bhagavad Gita? He says, well, yeah, I've read it a few times. He says, have you seen the part of the Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna is in the middle of the battlefield and he has to fight his family members? And Krishna is telling him he has to fight his family members. And I said, yeah. He said, do you think that was uncomfortable for Arjuna to fight his family members, to kill his grandfather and his cousins and whoever else was out there on Krishna's order? Do you think that was uncomfortable for him? And I said, yeah. He says, did he tell Krishna that he wanted to go back where he was comfortable and things were more relaxed? He wanted to leave the battlefield of Kurukshetra? Well, he did talk about that, but Krishna said, no, you should do your duty in spite of all the problems and all the difficulties. So again, I said, okay, all right. So in that sense, so I stayed with him, and eventually we got to Chicago. I hadn't blooped yet. I hadn't given up. I hadn't gone back to mommy. I stayed with him through to Chicago. And then eventually when we got to Chicago, I was given a bus, and I think 7 people. Drista was one of them. I see his name up there. Drista and Chaitanya Chandran, Nikula Brahmachari, and some others. Apurva, if you know Apurva, he was a cook. Hi, Drista. Apurva was the cook. And let's see. There was a devotee named Jagat Sukha. They were new devotees. And that's the story of how I met Tamal Krishna Maharaj, how I tried to get away from Tamal Krishna Maharaj, how he wouldn't let me escape, and how eventually he gave me a bus. And I think that all in all, it worked out really well during those years. So, anybody have any comments, questions?
Thank you, Brahma Prabhu. We have Dharashya Prabhu wanting to speak next. Maybe we can take questions after.
Okay, all right, well, good. Go ahead. I'd love to hear from him.
Okay, And then Maharaj is back again, and then we have Dashrath Sutta Prabhu as well.
Jai.
With Dhrashya Prabhu, you ready? Dhrashya Prabhu joined the Radha Damodar Sankirtan party in Memphis in May of 1977, at the age of 28. Initiated in St. Louis on the day before Srila Prabhupada left in October 1977. Served in Dallas and Houston till 1982, and then in Hong Kong till 1994. Since then, he has taken care of Kalachanjis in Dallas. Wonderful devotee, I can say that for sure. Dhrashya Prabhu, please do the honors.
Jai. Haribol.
Jai Brahma.
Jai. Haribol. Oh, there, it's you.
This is a real reunion. You were my bus leader and Sunanda was the cook. Pretty amazing. Om Jnana Timrandasya Jananjana Slakaya Chakshusan Mulitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So I'd like to tell the story about how I joined, because I've told this story many times. So hold on, someone's knocking at the door frantically.
Okay.
What's up? I know, but I'm on the...
Give me the key, I close the door, huh?
Okay, sorry, I'm back.
Jai.
I've told this story many times, and apologies to people who've already heard it, but because it's quite in some ways unbelievable, and actually this is supposed to be about Goswami Maharaj, but he wasn't on the party when I joined. He was in India with Prabhupada. I joined in May of 77. And my version of how I joined was a little different from yours.
Okay, well, good. Now we'll get the truth.
Yeah. Actually, I was kind of dragged to the temple by some friends who had seen that ad in the paper, by some of my pseudo-spiritual friends in Memphis. And then they didn't even go. And I was driving in my girlfriend's car. And on the way, she had picked up a Krishna book at my house, which I had picked up in Pittsburgh on a Christmas vacation visit 5 months before. And she opened the book, and the first thing she saw was Chanakya Pandit says, never trust a politician or a woman. So she was a little bit annoyed, to say the least. And we got to the temple just as you were finishing the Sunday feast lecture. And we walked in and you asked if there were any questions, and her hand shot up and she said, what is it about this? You know what? Can you explain why a woman should not be trusted? A woman and a politician shouldn't be trusted? And I don't remember what you answered. It might have had something to do with smaller brains and hearts like bowls of razor blades, and who knows? But she was so upset that she walked out and slammed the door and jumped in her car and accelerated away with the screeching of tires, and and so there I was, and you all looked at me, all the brahmacharis there. I said, well, it looks like you're going to spend the night. So I said, yeah, I guess so. So I spent the night, and I got up in the morning. The alarm went off, and Nakula Brahmachari got up and said, Jai Prabhu's time to rise and serve the Lord. And so, and then he ran off to the bathroom. And I started walking around, and I saw Raja Vidya chanting in front of a picture of Krishna on the wall with his nose 2 inches away and stamping his feet and chanting at the top of his lungs. And I was thinking that I should get out of there. And but somehow I got in the shower and came out, and Sunanda was leading the Mangalarti. And then everything started to make sense a little bit, at least to the point where I didn't feel like I had to get out of there. And then we had breakfast and whatever. And then I think you drove me home. And every time I left, you would make a point of making me commit to come back for something. Take you around to put up posters or help with. I think I went to the radio. Actually, I did. I went to the radio station with you. I have a picture of how we appeared in every town and village. I don't know if I can show that. Here we are. There's you and me in the background. This is ISKCON Goes on the Air in Memphis. Can you see it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know that one.
Okay. So let me see if I can turn the thing around again. So you would make me to commit to come back. And that went on for about a week. And then the bus was getting ready to leave. So you said, why don't you come with us? We're going to play music and go to different places and put on festivals. And I was I was a musician, and I thought, yeah, I'll do that for a while. And so then you said, so while you're gone, what are you going to do about your apartment? And I said, well, it can stay there, no problem. He said, no, you said, it'll just be a source of anxiety. Hasigrami is going to the flea market, and we can take your stuff and sell it. You're not attached, are you? And I said, no, I guess not. So you guys came and you took all my stuff, my guitars, my books, my whatever I had. And
your bird, do you remember your bird?
I'm sorry?
Your owl? You had an owl, a
owl?
stuffed animal. Didn't you have a stuffed bird? Yeah. Didn't you have a stuffed bird?
I may have. I don't recall that at all.
Okay.
So you guys cleaned out my apartment, and then you said, what are you going to do with that pickup truck? And I said, well, I'll just park it at a friend's house. He said, no, it'll just be a source of anxiety. Why don't you donate it? And then you said, you're not attached, are you? And I said, no, I guess not. So then I signed over the truck, and the same thing happened later with 40 acres of land I had in Arkansas. And still I was thinking I would just go for a while, but we would have conversations and I would ask questions. What about Muktananda? What about Sai Baba? What about this? What about that? And you had answers for all of them. And then one day you asked me, Bhakti Danny, do you have any more questions? And I said, no, I guess I don't. And you said, so then you agree that Krishna consciousness is the best philosophy? And I said, I guess so. And then he said, well, if you don't join, then you're a hypocrite.
I learned all these techniques from Goswami. He was the best. You know, he had an answer for everything. So anything that I did right was his credit, and anything I did wrong was my own fault.
Yeah, you did it. You did it all right. And we went first to the St. Louis Temple, and Janardhan's bus was parked there. And then we went to Louisville, and Kavi Chandra Maharaj's bus was parked there. And I remember I was tired when we got there, and the first thing I did was grab my sleeping bag and I went out to the front yard, and I went to sleep in my sleeping bag, and I woke up with someone shouting at me out of one of the second story windows, and it was Kavi Chandra Maharaj. And he was saying, east or south, not north or west, because I was facing the wrong way in my sleeping bag. And I remember there was a mushroom growing in the bathroom, and we'd pick it every day, and then the next day it would be back again. And I was taught how to do Sankirtan there in downtown Louisville by Naikatma Prabhu, who was there. And from there, we went to the Philadelphia Rath Yatra, and then to Port Royal, the Port Royal Farm, and all the buses were there. And then we went to the New York Rath Yatra, and then the Atlanta one. And then we went to Bloomington, Illinois, and then St. Louis and that's where I got initiated.
Yeah, nice. We had nice festivals at Bloomington.
Yeah. I think that
university there.
I think that was the last Radha Damodar University program, because I think we'd burned our bridges everywhere else. They sent me and one other person. It was Bali Raj. That was at that time. That's Sri Rupa's father. For those of you who are here in Dallas, they sent us with Rasaraj out west to as a scout group to see if we could book some more universities. And we were somewhere in New Mexico or Arizona when we were called back to St. Louis for the Govardhan Puja celebration. And I was told I was going to get initiated. And I got initiated and was reassigned to a Keshava Bharti's bus. And we got in a van that night after the initiation, and drove. He was in charge of Kansas City. We drove across Missouri to Kansas City, and when we got there at 6 o'clock in the morning, the phone was ringing, and they said, Prabhupada has just left. Come back to St. Louis. We'll have a disappearance ceremony. So there I was. I was just initiated, and I thought, wow, what's going to happen now? And then the next Radhastami, Goswami Maharaj came back to the United States. He came back to St. Louis, and a bunch of us went to meet him at the airport. We rented a Cadillac limousine to pick him up, and they covered the back seat with a cloth so he wouldn't have to sit on a Muji seat. And everyone was so excited. I remember someone saying once they saw him that he looked like Prabhupada. And then after he left the car, they said he smells like Prabhupada. And anyway, he came back and he took over at that time, I think they sent half of the Radha Damodar party went to Harrisburg, and the other half stayed with Tripurari Maharaj in St. Louis, and we became known as the Bhaktivedanta Book Distribution Party. And then from there, I went to Dallas and then to Hong Kong, and then back to Dallas, and I've been back here ever since.
Jai. And how long have you been running the restaurant down there?
Since 95.
My. Well, you always wanted a restaurant. You had a restaurant in Memphis, You had a restaurant, I remember you called Hot Mamas.
Yeah, that's right. And when
Hot
I
Mama.
joined, I had a restaurant. It was a bankrupt restaurant. But I had a few pieces of equipment left, which I donated.
Because you weren't attached to them.
Yeah. That's what
You're
you
not
said.
attached to them.
Yeah. So I was, if it wasn't for you, I'd still be lost in the pseudo spiritual world. You know, I really wouldn't have joined, but you made me join, and I'm still here. And for that, I thank you. And I'm eternally grateful.
Jai, that's very nice to say. It was Goswami. He sent us all out there and you were ready. Yeah, I remember that you were just ready to join. I mean, you had some arguments. Everybody has arguments, but you were ready. You had the Sukriti and you joined. And thank you.
And thank you.
Jai, Hari Bol.
Thank you, Brahma Prabhu. You gave us the gem of gems, the best of our devotees here in Dallas. Thank you so much.
Jai.
Rashay Prabhu, you want to say some more?
I think I've said enough. There are more people that want to speak, right?
Kavichandra Prabhu, Kavichandra Maharaj is still waiting in the wings. He got dropped off because of some glitch. Maharaj,
Yes, by all means.
are you back, Maharaj? Kavichandra Maharaj?
He's disappeared.
I think it's out again. So, okay, I'm going to start with His Grace Dashrath Sutta Prabhu. His Grace Dashrath Sutta Prabhu joined the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan bus in 1975 and participated in college festivals every day along with His Holiness Vishnuchand Swami and His Holiness Mahakrishna Goswami. He assisted in different services like helping His Grace Jayananda Prabhu building the Rath Yatra carts in Vrindavan, India, to assist in building Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi Mandir, where he also studied Sanskrit, Bengali, Hindi, when he felt sick in India. Later, returning to the US, he translated and published many rare books of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, contributing hundreds of verses to the Bhaktivedanta Vedabase. As a translator, he collected and translated the scattered Bengali, Sanskrit, English poetry written by Srila Prabhupada, and the BBT Mumbai printed it as, quote, a shower of divine compassion, close quotes. Dashrath Sutta Prabhu has been living at New Raman Reddy Farm project along with his Nectar Books library of all the Goswami's original writings and all the original biographies of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. So that's what Sutta Prabhu, please do us the honors.
Haribol, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I got a little bit of multimedia here for everybody. First, before I get to the me, how I joined, which is a very brief story, I've got some tidbits. Hey, Sunanda, Brahma, look, this is on the bus. Sunanda, Brahma, Praladananda, Rasatala doing arti. Can you see?
Jai.
You can see it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a couple of shots of you guys on the bus. Now here's you guys dancing crazily. Here's Brahma and Sunanda banging on your drums like madmen. And then the next photo, watch how it graduates to the next photo. Sorry about the shaking. I have neuropathy. Now look how ecstatic everybody's getting. The camera lens is fogging up. So that's some artifacts from Brahma's bus.
Did you take those pictures?
No, I accumulated them. Probably got them from Hashigrami.
Oh,
You remember
Hasya.
Hashigrami?
Yeah, Jai Hasya. Oh,
Hasya was
Hasya.
my best.
I couldn't have done a bus.
Hasya was my best buddy in Atlanta for like 30 years. So he told me countless Brahma bus stories.
Yeah, well, Hasigrami, I couldn't have done a festival bus without Hasigrami. He kept everything together, and I have stories about him too. Good stories.
Yeah, for example, let's see. He would tell me all kinds of stories about you guys doing the radio shows. He would talk about all those radio shows you guys did. And at some point in New York, he actually played me some of those tapes. Really wild stuff. So I've got some show and tell here. Let's see if I can. I'm not very expert at this Zoom stuff. Hey, Brahma, look, you were talking about first transcendental exposition. So this is
oh my gosh, look.
This is an artifact like this brochure that they would pass out. New York.
Oh, wow.
It would say a multimedia presentation under the guidance of Kirtanananda Swami, because it was.
So it started out. Kirtananda, yeah.
And it has the George Harrison Apple record blurb from the Krishna book in the back, because they would pass this out when they were doing the gig. And here's a photo of Vishnu John with the two buses, and you got Pushkar playing a mridanga, and I think Datta Das playing guitar, and Mother Shardiya. Is that her name? Anyway, there's lots of old devotees. This is like 1971. And early days. This is Vishnu John, just right out on the street. Look, they're just on the street there. There's a curb. You can see the asphalt and some tires. They're just sitting on the, next to the curb somewhere. Oh, okay, here's this. Remember this? Travel and
yes.
Tour. Travel and tour. This is the ultimate blurb. I mean, who would not join? Tour with advanced disciples of the Hare Krishna movement. Experience life in a mobile ashram. Daily classes in mantra meditation and the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. I'm reading this at home with the BTG, and I'm like, yeah, fist pump, yeah. Vegetarian yoga diet, yeah. Learn to play ancient Eastern instruments, yeah. So I called the number. I called the number and talked to Keshava Bharti.
Oh my God.
Keshava Bharti was doing the bus crew. So he said, ooh, the best bus in our fleet is passing through your town, Philadelphia, 4 days from now. He said, I'll call you back. He said Tamal Krishna Maharaj, but when you're new, you don't know what that sounds like.
Right.
So the next day, Tamal Krishna and Vishnu John called me up at home. So first Tamal checks me out. He's like kind of heavy and real dry, just kind of, just the fax man. So he checks me out, and then he hands the phone to Vishnu John because he finds out I'm a musician. So Vishnu John gets on the phone. He says, "Oh, what do you got? You have guitars? You have amplifiers?" And when I said I have mic stands, he said, "Oh, you have microphone stands? Well, we need some of those." So I told him to pick me up. I said, I don't have a car, but I live way out in the country of South Jersey. So they sent a Sankirtan van with Bayahari. You remember Bayahari?
Yes.
I sent the invitation to Bayahari. He's Glenn Collin on Facebook. I sent the invite for this meeting. I don't know if he came. So Bayahari and Achyuta. Do you remember Achyuta Das, one of our drivers? So they came out to pick me up. Now, Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me years later, he said they ran that ad, Travel and Tour, for a year and a half in BTG, and I was the only person who actually joined.
Wow.
He said they got lots of phone calls from a lot of ladies too, like college ladies would call up, "Oh, I'd like to join the bus." Say, sorry, ma'am, no. So, but I was the only person who actually said, yes, I am coming on this bus. Because at home, I had already spent 5 years from 1970 to 71. I spent 5 years reading Prabhupada's books at home because they came right into my bedroom. My big brother used to go to Philly. It was about 6 miles away. and he would come back with BTGs and stuff. So I guess the devotees hit him up on Market Street. So he'd come back to our bedroom. So Prabhupada's books came right into my bedroom without me asking.
Right.
So for 5 years, I studied BTGs, full-size Macmillan Gita, Ishopanishad, TLC. I had all that stuff by the time I joined. Here, this is rare shots by Vipradas. This is Vishnu John doing a Abhishek. This is very rare unpublished photos here. See, look at his face. Look at his face. He's in total bliss. He's the bliss guy.
Vipra was the driver on my bus.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, this is some various old photos. I spent. Let's see. I'm getting my media together here. I spent 2 weeks at the Bhaktivedanta Archives in November '97, digging up everything I could on Vishnu John and Jayananda. Because you know what? Jayananda Prabhu, who Prabhupada certified, went back to Godhead. He was on our Radha Damodar bus for a while. Did you know that? He was on the blue school bus with Gurudas Swami and Parivajrakacharya.
Yes.
I've got photos. I got photos here. This is Jayananda. Jayananda in the middle, Gurudas Swami, Parivajrakacharya. They did this. There's Padashri Raj, Dattadas, Vivaswan. Here's Vivaswan. Oh, that's Padashri Raj on the S Raj there. So Jayananda, yeah, Jayananda was on our party. And as you know, well, as almost some of us know, Srila Prabhupada wrote, everyone should follow the example of Jayananda. So that's Jayananda was on our bus. And Hashigrami, I wanted to talk about Hashigrami because he left his body in 2015. We used to stay up late at night. I'd go visit him. Where is he? Here's our Hashigrami in the Murari band. And here he is with Vishnu John. There's Vishnu John and Ratnabahu's head here. That's Sridhar and Hashigrami sawing away on the S-Raj. So Hashigrami would tell, we'd stay up late at night and he would tell so many stories about Vishnu John, Giant. So there's Hashigrami in the middle. There's Vishnu John, Ajadas, Tripuraris right next to Vishnu John. There's Tamal Krishna Maharaj here. Look right behind Tamal Krishna Maharaj is Jayo. Do you remember Jayo?
Jayo, right.
Jayo, I believe he left his body some years back. So he's there, and I think that's Vivaswan. And there's Hashigrami sawing away on his S-Raj. That S-Raj is now in the care of Sunanda. Sunanda, right? We've after Hashigrami's disappearance, we fixed you up with the Vishnu John peacock head S-Raj plus the Vishnu John harmonium.
Yeah, I have both of them, and I don't play the S-Raj, but we have Harinams here once a week in Santa Cruz, and I use that harmonium every time.
Wow. Yeah, when he became a householder, his little son Narottam tore off the ivories off of those keys.
Oh.
It was really, really pulverized. But those two things are the only physical artifacts left over from the Vishnu John's bus party. There's Vishnu John. There's a little palanquin here. And here's Maha Mantra in the front with the Mridanga. Remember Maha Mantra? He's a Swami, or was, or something. Hashigrami sawing the S-Raj behind him. So yeah, this is the old gang. What else do we got here? Another one. Oh yeah, we saw that. Hashigrami is a householder with his wonderful wife Nardi. I'll tell you a Hashigrami story. Are you guys still listening? Is this still happening here?
Yes.
I'll tell you a Hashigrami story. He was in New York City because he wasn't a quote unquote Sankirtan devotee or book distributor. He was in New York City while the book distributors got to go to Vrindavan, for the Mayapur festival and all. So he said he had a dream of Vishnu Jan Swami. And if you're ready for goosebumps, this might be a moment. He said Vishnu Jan Swami came to him in a dream and said, "Don't worry about me. I'm still serving Radha Damodar." And Hasha was like, wow, what does that mean? It's a dream of Vishnu Jan. And as you know, March 1976, we didn't have internet or, even coast to coast phones or nothing. So after a few weeks, the devotees came back. They said, "Oh, Prabhu, it's unbelievable. Vishnu Jan disappeared. Nobody knows what happened." So then Hashigrama put two and two together. That Vishnu Jan left his body, and on the way out, he visited Hashigrami. "Don't worry about me. I'm still serving Radha Damodar." Isn't that profound? Isn't that profound?
Jai.
And he told me he had one more dream of Vishnu Jan years later. He said that he was dreaming and he saw like a mound, like a mountain, shorter kind of mound thing. And there was a white temple on top. And he climbed up the steps, and there was Vishnu Jan at the top. And oh God, not memory. There's Janardhan, Adikeshava, Drishta, I believe. Drishta or Drishta Krishna. Oh, look, it's Gauranga. Remember Gauranga?
Gauranga, Jai.
Vishnu Jan, Gauranga Das. Gauranga was always tall and handsome and smart and big book distributor. So that the second dream of Hashigrami, I forget what happened at the top of the mound. He encountered Vishnu Jan and something was said, but I may have it recorded somewhere. But there's one more Hashigrami story. He actually wrote this down. I have it on my computer now, but it's like 5 pages, so I can't read it. It's called the Radhashtami Miracle. It's called, let's see, Sri Radha Damodar Leela on Srimati Radharani's appearance day. So the basic idea is way out in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. They had a miracle. The bus, you know what it's like driving these buses. It's like a 1960s bus with over 1 million miles on it. We would convert them into bus temples. So the bus oil pump blew out. So what are the chances of finding a GMC original part oil pump in the middle of nowhere, like on a weekend? So Vipra and Hashigrami are calling all over the place. And as you can imagine, Tamal Krishna is like badgering them 20 times a day. "So, did you find one yet? Well, you guys can't fail us. You've got to find the part. You got to fix the bus. Otherwise, you're in Maya." You know how he is. So they were like at wit's end. They're calling all the different parts, not available. They were calling all the junkyards, not available. And they were just completely freaking out. So what Hashigrami, he had a plate of maha stashed in the glove box because when you're the driver, you got privileges. You got your little front area. You could like stash candy in your little boxes and stash maha, and you got your little privacy up front there. So Hashigrami had a plate of maha stored in the glove box. So Hashi and Vipra were completely exasperated without being able to find the water pump. I mean the oil pump. So Hashigrami says, "Oh, I'm so frustrated. I'm just going to go eat my maha." So he opens the glove box, and on top of his plate of maha is a brand new GM box, a little box where parts come in. And he's like, "Huh? What?" He opens it up. It's an oil pump. Oh, it's Radhashtami. Yeah, this is Radhashtami. He finds the box. Brand new oil pump. He was like, "Wow, Vipra found one." So he goes over to Vipra. "How did you find an oil pump? You and me, we called everywhere. Nobody's got it." Vipra says, What are you talking about?" Hashi said, "There's an oil pump is in the glove box with the maha." Vipra is like, no, I don't know anything about it. They said, let's go show it to Goswami. So Hasya and Vipra, they go show Goswami the oil pump. And he's like, where did you guys get this? Now let's see. I have to make sure I get the ending right here. Let's see. See, not good. Let's see. So Goswami goes, what? It was on the Maha plate? Hasya says, no. It was not the deity's plate, just my plate of Maha. So Tamal Krishna listens with a grave attitude that is puzzling. Then there's a few beats of silence while he puts it together. He says, oh, this is not good. And Hasya is thinking, huh? Not good? This is a miracle. How could, what? So Tamal goes, you two are entrusted by Prabhupada to keep Radha Damodar's bus in a first-class condition. Due to your incompetence, you have allowed this Vaishnav aparad. Huh? What? You are fortunate that Radharani has allowed you to continue your duties to her beloved devotee, Vishnu Jan. She has intervened due to the purity of his devotional service. He wags his finger at me and Vipra, not yours. Radharani did it because of Vishnu Jan, not you, knuckleheads. So then he says, I can't remember anything else about the plate of sweets, but I do know Vipra and I scooted out of Maharaj's room and spent the next 2 hours installing the mystic pump, which worked perfectly. Vishnu Jan, when told of this later, gave a big chuckle and said, Radha and Damodar can do anything. They can even take you back to Godhead. That was our mood then when everything was possible. So as a postscript, do you think that anyone, this is Hashigrami's musings here. So as a postscript, do you think that anyone, anywhere, anytime could ever tell me that my amazing Sri Radha and Damodar are not real? Or that the omniscient personality of Godhead does not directly involve himself in the lives of even his most undeserving devotee? Hashigrami Das, written in 2009. Okay, so that's Hashigrami's Radhastami miracle with the oil pump from nowhere.
Guy.
So Hashigrami died suddenly. He went his first trip to India in January 2015. First trip to India, and he was there 3 days and gets a heart attack in Mayapur. Vishnu Jan and Purnamrita. You remember Purnamrita?
Yeah.
So Hashigrami leaves his body. He wrote me a long email the day before he died, and he was in complete bliss. It appears as if Mahaprabhu and Nityananda took away all of his anartas. They even took away his guitar attachments. Because he went to India with this. He spent hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars on special tiny little guitar, special tiny little effects box, battery operated, special little amplifier. He thought he was going to sit in the back of the Mayapur temple room and, jam with his guitar like he used to play with Vishnu Jan. But Krishna even took that away because it got lost in shipping and ended up in Bombay. So he leaves his body in Mayapur. This is old Radha Damodar as we knew them. Most of this jewelry is handmade by Ramacharya. Remember Ramacharya?
Yes.
Vishnu Jan would be given a Bhagavatam class, and we'd be sitting there helping Ramacharya glue on these little. He had all these little bins and little containers of fake jewels and just cheesy plastic, beads and things. And he would make a cardboard back, and we would just glue it all together. And this is all handmade. The cloth part, so he'd get some ladies here and there to make those, but Ramacharya did all the jewels. So let's see, where's the beginning? Do you remember? I'll show you the Vishnu Jan when I joined. I joined the bus October 75, right after his peak. The peak was the 1975 Rath Yatra. That was like the peak of his career, because only a few months later he was going to disappear when they went to India in March '76. Oh, here we go. This is Rath Yatra 75. Look how confident he is. He's so convinced. He has no doubts in Christian consciousness. This is that famous address. I've got the audio queued up here. Let's see. Where's the audio? Let's see. This ready? Rath Yatra address. Turn the volume up. You remember this when he was talking Rath Yatra?
To explain a little bit about our festival today, the philosophical significance is also very, very enchanting. These deities you see here on the top of the stage, Lord Jagannath, the blackish colored deity.
So these photos are at the same time he's lecturing.
And Baladev on the far side, the far right-hand side, his expansion. These three deities of Krishna are considered materially as incomplete. They appear to be like.
Anyway, we all know that famous lecture, right? Where he describes about Lord Jagannath, and he says, don't try to limit God because he can do anything. God even came to Moses in a burning bush. So then you will say that the Christians are bush worshippers? So then right after that little lecture, then he starts chanting. Let's put this pause. Sorry for my spaced out presentation here. And then he's chanting. So this is the photos that go with the audio.
To explain a little bit about our festival today, the philosophical.
Okay, we already had that part. Anyway, this is the Vishnu John when I joined. Vishnu John liked me a lot because we had the musicians connection. Because I joined with my guitars and my tape recorders and amps and devices I had soldered together and built. So Vishnu John, the very first day, he said, "Oh, well, we can't play guitar, but I have this for you to play." Vishnu John pulled out the S-Raj from under the bus, and he demonstrated it for a minute and handed it to me and said, "Here, you can practice on this and play it with our band." So first day he gave me the S-Raj, and then the second day he made me the instrument tech and sound man. So we would set up the, of course they bring the deities out, and we'd set up all this Pandal stuff and the stage and put the batteries underneath and the inverter to run the PA amp, and I would have to tune up all the different instruments to his harmonium, which was a Santur has like 100 strings, Tambora has 4 strings, and S-Raj has 13 sympathetics and 6 playing strings. So we would Vishnu John depended on me to tune up all of his stuff and have it ready for him. And it was so ecstatic to just set that up, and then we would play at a college every single day, different college. The gigs were set up ahead of time by a pair of devotees in a Volkswagen Beetle. Remember the Beetle? Meep, meep. The devotees would drive around the country, set up these gigs. And then we would follow them with the bus, set up, do a big festival right out on the commons every day, where prasadam table, book table, and the spider was set up. Tamal would be sitting in the center of the spider web, and devotees would go around and find the nice students and bring them to the spider, and he would pounce on them. And we saw that over a zillion times. Tamal Krishna Maharaj would just pounce on these students, say, "So, what's keeping you in the material world?" And as you can imagine, no matter what they said, "Oh, my school or my girlfriend or my parents," or whatever they said, he would defeat it. So they would just surrender. So they would tell the big lie. And Brahma, Sunanda, I'm sure you heard this lie a million times. "Oh, we're just going to we're going to Minneapolis and we'll be back here in 2 weeks. So if you could just come with us, you spend a week or 2 weeks with us, and then we'll just drop you off right back here where we got you." Of course, it was a lie because they're not doubling back. They're only going one way across the U.S. So they would basically kidnap students like over and over and over again. 2 or 3 at every stop. and just hijack these people, these guys, and just take them on a tour. And of course, they would get a taste. This is Nagari. This is a road show. This is First Transcendental Exposition. Nagari Dasi, she lives in Fort Walton Beach, longtime Gainesville resident. We got some. This is old gigs like Brahma. You were talking about the Syria Mosque gig. That audio is really profound. We still have that audio recording. And here's Vishnu John on stage. The Syria Mosque gig was profound because Srila Prabhupada came to see it. And Hashigrami told me, he said there was a spot where he takes a big guitar solo, like with a wah-wah pedal and full distortion and everything. So he says he looked at Prabhupada and he just ripped into his solo and just blasted out his most intense, rock and roll adaptation of the Kirtan tune or whatever it was. And he claims that Prabhupada smiled at him. Later, here's another Hashigrami Vishnu John quote. I just mentioned the wah-wah pedal with the electric guitar. Vishnu John told Hashigrami at one point, "You are going to wah-wah yourself back to Krishna." That's like a guitar joke. Here's Aja in the road show. Aja was the antagonist called Ringer. His name was Ringer because if he doesn't become Krishna conscious, then he's a dead ringer. And here's another roadshow gig. Santosh on the piano. Can't see who's on guitar. I forget who the drummer was. Bass player. Here's Vishnu John, and there's Aja as ringer again. It looks like a more intimate type of a gig. Yeah, so we got hundreds of these photos we found in the archives. I made a few DVDs, passed them out over the years, but I think they're all online now. Roadshow. After a while, they started changing the roadshow a little when Sudama joined it. So there's a really heavy letter you could find in the database. There's a heavy letter Prabhupada wrote to Sudama about what is this roadshow and Yoga Village. It will be another hippie edition. Tell them to stop this immediately. So Prabhupada put a stop to it because I guess, I don't know, somebody reported to Prabhupada, that it was hippie-ish or something. I don't know. So, but for whatever reason, he stopped it. And then Vishnu John traveled with the school bus, just him and his merry band, brahmacharis, in one bus. And then you all know the history. You guys told more history after Tamal Krishna came back and rejoined him. Because, they were buddies when they joined the movement in '67. They were already pals from the material world. So they joined together. They lived in Frisco together, got initiated there. And then they split up, did different things. Tamal Krishna ended up in India. So when he came back in '74, I believe, 73, yeah, by '74 he came back. It's in Vyasaki's book. You know Vyasaki's book, Radha Damodar Vilas?
Yes.
It gives the whole history. Although a few of the little details are contested. Did you know this? Up in Illinois near Chicago, there's a Bhakta Adam Dorta, Dorta. He's been compiling like the actual definitive science of Vishnu John's history. He's actually found out, he's so thorough. He's like a forensic, detective. He dug up Vishnu John's high school yearbook, showing Mark Datillo being in the chorus, the singing club in a high school. And he knows Vishnu John's relatives and stuff, and he knew his cousin, Vishnu John's cousin, Revati Nandan.
Revati Nanda.
Yeah. So Adam knows Revati Nandan really well. I think Revati left his body last year.
Yes,
there was some.
I think he did. Yeah.
he did.
Yeah, there was some blurbs about him. So he was Vishnu John's cousin. They grew up together when they were kids. So Adam is compiling his stuff. He's actually he's printing. He has 2 Vishnu John books in the works. One is just words talking about the different stuff and stories and research he came up with, and the whole nother book is going to be just the images, because besides this 230 something images I dug up from the archives, he went up to the archives last year and dug up even more. They sent him the thumbnails of 10,000 images of like all the ISKCON stuff that would include Vishnujan and devotees and festivals. And Adam went through it all, and he came up with another 400 on top of my 230 something. So we got lots of ecstatic images. And I got a couple Prabhupada stories for Vishnujan. Oh,
Okay.
sorry, my wrist is giving out, so I'm gonna try to put this phone down. Put the phone down. How do you work this thing? Oh, Krishna. Oh my God. Oh. Anyway, there's a couple of Srila Prabhupada stories. One is Srila Prabhupada actually, believe he put it in writing. He said, Vishnujan's chanting puts me into Vaikuntha. Another one is Srila Prabhupada told him. Prabhupada said, my mercy is it's like the sun. It shines everywhere without restriction. But you have taken more. So that's pretty incredible. And another thing I stress is, you remember the old Golden Avatar tape series? There's at least 3 of those have Vishnujan. So the one called Paramount Studio Recording, it's also online. I should have queued it up to play a snippet here. The Paramount Studio Recording is where Vishnujan is singing and the devotees are responding, but Srila Prabhupada is acting like his accompanist. Prabhupada's just playing the mridanga. So when was the last time Prabhupada acted like your accompanist? No, he's the spiritual master. We accompany him. But Prabhupada and Vishnujan had such an intimate connection that Prabhupada he shut up, sat on the side, and just played the drum. So that's how close they were. And if you ever check out any of the audio where they're together and they're talking stuff, you could tell, like the way Vishnujan talks to him and the way Prabhupada responds, you could tell they had a depth of intimacy that general jivas like me, they can't even approach. Because I only saw Prabhupada that one time, New York 76, because Vishnujan sent me to Jayananda. Vishnujan was my first Bhakta program. And then he sent me to Jayananda to build the Rath Yatra carts for Prabhupada's triumphant ride down Fifth Avenue for July 1976. That was Prabhupada. He conquered Fifth Avenue and New York and USA and the world. So, what was I saying? Let's see. Vishnujan sent me to Jayananda. Anyway, senior moments. Running out of ideas. Anyway, that was a few blurbs. That was a slideshow and some artifacts. And
thank you, Dr. Prabhu.
Someone else can talk.
We'll ask some questions if we can have some time for them to have some questions.
Okay.
Sure. We might have some questions of Brahma Prabhu or somebody else. Go ahead, please. And whoever would like to ask any question of the people who presented, the devotees who presented, please speak up. Unmute yourselves and ask your question.
I'd just like to make a brief comment that Ekanath Prabhu at the Bhaktivedanta Archives has a very wonderful collection of Vishnujan Maharaj's lectures. So there's a lot of recordings of him that are there.
Wonderful.
Really? They haven't released those?
No.
Wow.
Just have to ask Ekanath Prabhu.
Wonderful. Anybody else has any comments they'd like to make or questions?
I'd like to say that some of the roadshow, or probably most of the roadshow music is available on Mangalananda's website. Him and Jaman Dagni, they wrote most of the songs for the roadshow, and he put them on records. The first one was A Change of Heart, published by ISKCON. And those are online on his website. I think it's called averagesoul.com or something like that. Mangalananda, the songs from the roadshow Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, the source of all that be, and so forth. So there, it was
Wow.
really fabulous, and they had tie-dyed dhotis, so, and anyway, that's available if you want to hear some of those songs.
Wow. Here's 30 or 50 hours or so. Look at all this. This is all Vishnu John stuff I collected. We dumped it all on the hard drive, Hashigrami and I, but we still didn't get around to like picking through it and cutting out the clicks and pops and hiss reduction. So here's like hundreds of hours of Vishnu John kirtans and lectures too. But I need to compare it to what Ekanath has. I'll call him up soon and find out what's going on with that.
Nice.
Because
one thing, go ahead.
Because Adam, who's doing all the Vishnu John archiving and research and stuff, him and I are talking about we need in this current climate of like fall down type condition, soul gurus and stuff. We're not going to get into that, but we need Vishnu John revival because the sound of his voice, his lecturing, even though he was like a new devotee, he was in the movement 5 years when he was doing most of his lectures. He was a 5-year devotee. He was a 7-year devotee when he left his body. So the sound of his voice and the purity, we need a revival. People have become fans of so many things. So becoming a fan of Vishnu John's lectures and music is, something that's reliable. It's reliable, like Jayananda's devotional mood, and reliable, like Prabhupada's rock solid devotion. Vishnu John, he's in there. So we need a revival of this kind of stuff instead of worshiping other conditioned souls and all that kind of stuff.
Thank you. Wonderful point.
I just wanted to mention that most people don't know this, but when we were on the bus, we slept like sardines, just one right next to the other. In a line on the bus. And when I joined the Radha Damodar bus in 75, Vishnu John would sleep right next to the deities. And right next to him, I mean, we're talking shoulder to shoulder here. Tamal Krishna Maharaj would sleep right next to Vishnu John. And then I would sleep right next to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And so it would go down in the pecking order until you were out the door, and then they out the door, people slept in the vans.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if people really know this, that the way that Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Vishnu John Maharaj slept like that, sardine, everybody slept a sardine can style, just one right next to the other, shoulder to shoulder, the whole way out from the deities. There was a deity curtain, and then to the bus. And then Vishnu John would be the first person up in the morning, and he would go in and take care of the deities, and everybody all hustled out. There was a shower in the back of the bus where people took a shower, and right behind the deity was the kitchen, where whoever was the cook. My first cook was a Porva, and then after that, Sunanda, where they would start preparing the deity preparations. So I thought that was an interesting idea, fact.
Thank you.
Nice.
Very good.
Yep, the sardine program. Yep, I was there many nights. Squished it in.
Brahma Prabhu,
Yes,
can I ask a question?
go ahead.
Yeah, like, so you are a bus leader, and then you see there's so many vans that you're in charge. So how do you manage the vans, and how is this been reported to Vishnu John Swami, Tamal Krishna Maharaj? How did the whole procedure goes?
Well, we started out with a few men, and then more people joined us, and they were sent to us. But at one point, we had the bus in 3 vans, and then some other kind of a car as well. So the newer devotees, they went with the festival to the college or to the to the park or to the fair. We did county fairs as well. And they would go with the festival crowd. So the bus, we would get up, and after the morning program and after prasadam, the festival crowd would gather on the bus, and the book distribution crowd would go out to the vans. And so they were like satellites, and each of the vans had a van leader, and they were assigned to go here and there. And I was supposed to be like managing it all. But everybody had their job, and everybody, you know, had their place and knew what to do. So I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah,
So
but then how do you
the bus
manage
would
the
go separately.
events?
Say it again?
Like you are bus leader, then there's so many bus and events under you. So how do you manage the whole party? Because not everybody is going to report to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, right? You are the one
They
in
would
charge.
report to me. They would
Mhm.
report to me, and I would call Tamal Krishna Maharaj once a week. And I would give him a report. And then he would either be upset with me or happy with me. And one thing about Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he had this particular style, and he told me about it. He said, I push people to the limit. And then when I see that they're about to crack, I ease up on them. So he would push me to the limit. And then when I was like almost tearful over the phone, then he would just ease up on me and be real sweet. And I needed a lot of stroking. So he would tell me how great I was doing. You're really good. You're one of the best bus leaders. Your van, your party does great. You sell so many books. You're keeping the festivals going. And then I would be like, oh, great. But if we didn't do our a quota of books that week, I would be afraid to call him. So when I would call him, then he would give me the sauce. Tamal Krishna Maharaj used to say, Vishnu John, he attracts people with the sweet sauce. He says, but when they get here and they're trained up a little bit, I get them working with the hot sauce. So I'm the hot sauce and Vishnu John is the sweet sauce. So if you were with the festival party, then you were new and you had to be like kind of taken care of. If you were with the book distribution party, then you had been there some time and you were more seasoned and more ready to handle the harder work. So the festival party was the new party, and we would take the bus to wherever the festival was. And like Hasyagrami was in charge of the festivals. He did everything for the festival. Without him, I couldn't have put on a festival. And after Vipra was called away, he became the bus driver. So Hasyagrami was the bus driver and the festival leader, and pretty much my second in command or trusted friend. And when I heard Hasyagrami cried, I hadn't talked to him in 30 years or more. He sent me some information, some tapes at some point in there. But when I heard he died in Mayapur, I cried like a baby. So he it can't be underestimated how much he did, because he kept that festival bus going. And at one point during the Christmas marathons, we used to drive the bus at night. We would drive the bus at night to get to our spots so that we wouldn't lose a day. And Hasyagrami would drive all night long and then get up the next day and help get everything together for the book distribution of the festival. And one time I caught him drinking coffee. And I said, what are you doing? You know, it was the middle of the night and he pulled over into some kind of a truck stop. And I said, what are you doing? And he says, I'm going to get some coffee. I said, coffee? We can't drink coffee. That's against the principles. He says, well, if I fall asleep while I'm driving the bus in the middle of the night and everybody's killed, he said, what's worse, coffee or everybody being killed? And I said, get a double. You should get a double and maybe a candy bar while you're at it. Just keep going.
As Srila
Oh.
Prabhupada would say, do the needful.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, he was great. I can't say enough about him. I had some really wonderful people on the bus.
Hey, Brahma, I remember, well, two things. One thing is I remember that we had a very, although I wasn't really one of the big book distributors, I was kind of in the background cooking and taking care of the Ds. But there was a very strong quota system for the devotees. And sometimes I recall you wouldn't let devotees back into the bus until they had made their quota of books.
Well, to be exact about it, we had an auction. Do you remember the auctions?
Oh, yes.
So we had an auction. Tamal Krishna Maharaj did this. So Sunanda would make some sweets, all the deity sweets and some fancy things. And then in the morning, we would have an auction and we would have certain sweets, certain preparations, and the devotees would bid on it, that they would sell so many books and they would get the sweet. So if they got the sweet, if they made the bid, then I required them to make the to bring in that kind of Lakshmi in order to like cover their bid. Because if you bid at $500 for a sweet ball, well, what good is it? Because you couldn't do that much. So it became reality. So if they didn't make their bid, then they had to stay out and do the 7-Eleven pick, where they stayed out till 11 o'clock. And then after the 7-Eleven pick, they had to sleep outside the bus. We used to have a motto. It says, if you don't make your take, you had to sleep out in the lake. And the lake was where the hose came out from the kitchen, from the kitchen sink and made a lake outside. So you had to sleep out by the lake, or if you didn't do the pick, you had to sleep under the leak. There was an oil leak. So, but nobody really ever slept in the lake or out under the leak. That was just a joke. But we did make them stay out till 11 o'clock if they made a bid. They had to make, if they made a bid, they had to keep that promise and get that cash. Otherwise, they had to sleep outside. That was the deal.
Let me tell you,
right?
Yeah. Let me tell you though, what one of the sweets I used to make that you would auction off. Now it came to my mind now that I remember it. All of you here probably know what the cans of sweetened condensed milk.
Eagle Rock.
Eagle Rock. That's the brand there. Eagle Rock. Okay, it's already thick, sweetened condensed milk in the can. But I had a sister, I don't know where I learned it from, maybe from Apurva. You boil the can in water, in a pot of water. You boil it for about half an hour or whatever, 45 minutes. And then you open the can and it's like caramel, thick. It's like it's solid. So then once I had that, then I would make a pastry dough and I would roll out the dough and make like samosas filled with the solid Eagle brand condensed milk and fry them.
Right.
And that was one of the sweets that we would auction off.
Right. Well, it worked. And we wouldn't tolerate somebody just making an outrageous bid. They had to bid something that they could do. So that was one of the ways we kept them going. We did a lot of outlandish things. We were kids. I mean, like I said, I took over the bus when I was 22. And my philosophy was just try to have as much fun as you can and don't think about it. Because it was a hard life, really. I mean, going out and selling books all day and living there in the sardine can. So I just, and I also had another thing I called therapy, where I'd take the guys out, somebody's having a problem. I said, okay, take them out to a picnic table, lay them out on the picnic table, put a book bag under their head and say, okay, Prabhu, what's bothering you? And then they would tell me all the problems and all the things they were having. And I would be the therapist And then I'd say, okay, good, I heard it. Now, you're good enough now. You okay? And they'd say, yeah. So just the idea that they could go out and talk about it, that relieved them, and they felt better. So yeah, again, like it says, I plead youth, because I did some crazy things, outrageous things, some things that I shouldn't have done, but I plead youth and inexperience, because there wasn't any school for bus leaders. And say, okay, Brahma, we're going to send you to the bus leader school. No, it's just like, here, you take over. We'll tell you what to do. And then when I was on my own, and I didn't have any supervision, well, usually when I meet devotees who are on my bus, the first thing I do is apologize. And most of them say, yeah, well, we had fun. So it was great.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to offer my obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnav devotees. My name is Gauradas. I came down in 1975 with Nandi Keshwara Prabhu from my hometown, with Dharma Prana, and I saw Vishnu Jan Swami's bus there parked by the Emerson Street Temple with the back door open. And I saw the Esaraj, I saw my Tampura for the first time, I saw harmonium, I saw the beautiful, how do you describe that? Arches, the way they were created in the bus. I was so intrigued, but I was just brand new and I had this fear, if I get on this bus, I'll never be able to leave. My attachments. But my question is specifically, when I joined in 75, Gaur Nityananda Bol, Hari Bol was a big hit. Now, over the years, I've noticed with the Kirtan reform taking place that this has been negated as not being authorized. Now, I noticed in the Bhaktivinoda Thakur songbook, the one that Jagadish Prabhu compiled, I don't know, 1990 or whatever, and the Gaur Nityananda Bol, Gaur Shri Advaita Bol, and so forth, is part of a bona fide Bhaktivinoda Thakur song, and it may even be a part of one of his Nagar Kirtans, which could be sung in the street. But I'm just trying to understand. As far as I know, Srila Prabhupada accepted this, and he never criticized this. But my knowledge may be incomplete. And my part two of my question is: did Vishnu Jan Swami have any favorite bhajan that he has? I mean, because he gave us so many. So would anyone like to comment on that, please?
I don't know why it would be rejected. We sang it all the time. I still sing it. Somebody will have to enlighten me as why it's not acceptable. Gaur Nityananda Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. I mean, that's pretty simple there.
I have a comment. I have a comment on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Srila Prabhupada is part of Srila Prabhupada's intimate relation with Vishnu Jan that Prabhupada actually authorized him to make up some of his own tunes. So a lot of the tunes that we chant a lot, like that bhajan, Vrindavane Ramayastana, that it's kind of unusual, almost Russian sounding tune. That's one of his, and of course the Gaur Nityananda Bol that Gauradas just said. That whole set and the whole different Govinda Jaya Jaya thing with all the different variations. That's all pure Vishnu Jan, and hardly anybody chants that anymore except for Sunandaji, because Sunanda learned the real thing. But Prabhupada authorized Vishnu Jan, and then we chanted it all around. And nowadays they're making this fundamentalist thing: you can't chant this, can't chant Radhe Radhe, you can't chant this and that. But we do have tapes of Vishnu Jan actually chanting Radhe Radhe and all these different things. So you can ban all the stuff that we did in Prabhupada's time, including Vishnu Jan tunes, but what's the value of all this banning? So
Similarly, Jai Sachinandana, Jai Sachinand. I was in Copenhagen. I was on a stage. I started chanting both Gaur Nityananda Bol, Jai Sachinandana, and one Mataji said, Prabhu, we do not chant that here. You cannot chant that. And I thought, what? Like, there seem to be some new laws now. Anyway, please continue.
We have generations of people who are out of touch with what we experienced in Prabhupada's time and in Vishnu Jan's time. We had a different world, and when us old relics try to do that in the current temple rooms, we get censored, blasted, and even banned. Oh, you're bogus. Like what just happened to you, Gordas? You got banned and censored for chanting something bogus, but they probably don't even know the name of Vishnu Jan. And they surely don't even know the history like what we're discussing tonight, that this history is dying with us, other than like Vyasaki's book and maybe Adam's book. This history is gone. When us old farts keel over, nobody's going to tell this stuff. None. So all of the old tunes that died with Vishnu Jan, and we're trying to keep them alive, and we're dying too, and then they will be gone unless we have a revival in the land.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Some of this is probably trying to keep it parampara with what the acharyas chanted, to try to, some of the things that we did early on, especially with Vishnu Jan's style, was very innovative. But I don't think there was anything wrong with it. Of course,
well, Gordas mentioned the songbook. We're talking about Bhaktivinoda's Gitavali. Now, I translated all four of Bhaktivinoda's songbooks. So in Gitavali, he has all this Gaura-Nityananda Bol and all these different variations. All the Vishnu Jan things are right there in Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Nam Kirtan section, the whole chapter with all these different Nam Kirtans for chanting. So are we going to sit around and say, oh, Bhaktivinoda is unauthorized? GBC did not vote on it to authorize him. What?
Yes,
Sunanda, did you have something to say?
Sorry.
Sunanda keeps chanting it. Sunanda, remember a few years back we did in Atlanta, Rath Yatra Festival, we did the Vishnu Jan Swami reunion band.
Yeah. So I still do chant all those melodies even now. I have yet to find anybody ask me not to chant it because it's not bona fide. As a matter of fact, I get emails occasionally from young devotees asking me if I have a video that will or can teach them how to chant in that Vishnu Jan style. So I haven't experienced that kind of thing.
Nice.
I have heard that some devotees have said it's not a bona fide chant, but I haven't experienced anything like that personally.
Wow.
There's also the statement by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who stated that he looked forward to the day when the Russians and the Americans and the Europeans would all come together in Sridham Mayapur and chant Nitai Gauranga Jai Satinandana.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, he said that.
But it may not be GBC approved.
Vishnu Jan took that Jai Satinandana thing and he made a whole set out of it. He says all these different things, it flows into different things and repeats and does all kinds of different, very, very interesting variations. That's why he would say during the roadshow days, come along with us as we go for a ride on the magic carpet of the holy names.
Yeah, hi.
So all of that Gaura-Nityananda Bol and Jai Satinanda and Govinda Jai, that's Vishnu Jan's weaving a magic carpet, a tapestry just for us to fly away with him.
You asked the question what you thought Vishnu Jan's favorite chant was.
Yes.
And I don't know definitively this, but Vishnu Jan used to like to chant Gopinath.
Yes.
He wrote a particular melody for it. Prabhupada said he could write melodies for the music, Bhaktivinoda's music. So he used to chant this wonderful, beautiful Gopinath chant, Gopinath, da 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 da. And something that you don't know that didn't last very long is that Tamal Krishna and Vishnu Jan Maharaj, they started a program to enliven the devotees called Dial a Bhajan. It didn't last long. You ever hear of it? Did you ever hear of it? Dial a Bhajan?
It's
Okay, it didn't last long.
it's
It
mentioned
was,
in Vyasaki's
just
book.
maybe a couple of months.
Vyasaki talks about it in his
Oh,
book.
is it? Okay, yeah. So Dial Bhajan, a Sankirtan devotee who was on the lots distributing books, or any other devotee who was having a problem, could call in Vishnu Jan and ask him to sing a bhajan over the phone. So that went on for a little while, and people liked it, and I thought it was just brilliant. But they had to stop it because the devotees, they just wanted to listen to Vishnu Jan on the telephone and didn't want to go back to distributing the books. So they gave up, they stopped the Dial Bhajan program because it was taking up too much time. But that's an innovative idea, Dial Bhajan. I don't know if it was authorized by the acharyas, but the idea itself is something the acharyas may not have ever thought of, but the idea itself, of course, is authorized because it's for Krishna.
Hare Krishna. My name's Anu Bhavananda. I knew Vishnujanan Swami. I knew Jayananda, but I heard once that Prabhupada really did heavily chastise Vishnujanan Swami for singing Hari Ramo. And he said this could spoil the whole movement. Has anybody heard this one before? He chastised him for saying Hari Ramo.
There's testimonies about that, but we've never heard any of the hundreds of recordings. We've never actually heard him chant that. So I guess he did it accidentally or whatever. Prabhupada called him on it, and he never did it again. I never heard it. I have hundreds of recordings. Never heard Ramo.
Which somebody did.
Somebody did.
Somebody
Ramo is a
chanted
bit. Ramo is a big issue. If you look up chanting Hari Ramo online, there's all kinds of people squawking about it. But Anu, what other memories do you have? Did you meet him?
I once, Vishnujanan Swami, once he took, when I first joined, I was a Bhakta Das. I was called Bhakta Chakra by Danavir. And once all the devotees went on to Harinam, and Vishnujanan Swami had me stay back and clean the kitchen. And I was a real spaced out character. I don't even think I did a good job in cleaning the kitchen. But when Vishnujanan Swami came back, he hugged me. He actually hugged me and I really saw him. To me, he was just like a expansion of Lord Chaitanya. To me, I love Vishnujanan Swami more than I can say myself.
Here's a little quickie Vishnujan vignette. When I joined, because I had already read so many of Prabhupada's books and stuff, I was like, full of questions and stuff, because I didn't really know, what do devotees do? What do they like? What's their lifestyle? Everything that I've experienced was in the books. You can't apply that to real people. What did the Hare Krishnas do? So Vishnujan and Goswami, they would let me come with them on a japa walk every day. We'd be parked in some different town somewhere. We would find a park and go for a walk. So I had carte blanche to ask questions anytime, day or night, even in the middle of japa period. I was allowed to ask them questions, pick their brains, and they enjoyed that, questions and answers. So we were going for a walk around in some park, and over to the edge was a bunch of tall weeds and a big junky car. Old rusty car was stuck in the weeds. So the Vishnujan gave class that day, and he was saying how everything can be used in Krishna's service. Everything in this world. So we're on Japa Walk, and I see this rusty junk car rotting in the weeds. And so I thought, I'm going to challenge these guys now. So see that car there? How can that be used in Krishna's service? Mr. John, without missing a beat, he just immediately replies, it could be melted down to make kartals. So we had a zillion things like that, you know, where me, the fake nerdy brainiac, was gonna, you know, challenge the great sages, you know, to a battle of wits or something, but they would always win.
Dasharat Sutta Prabhu, I got the impression that when you were being recruited to join, you were not encouraged to play the guitar in kirtan, yet Hashigrami did that, correct?
Well, first of all, I wasn't being recruited to join. I
Okay.
was reading the books at home. I called up and said, I want to join this bus.
Right,
And I joined with guitars and stuff.
right.
But Vishnu John gave me, they set my guitars aside for sale or whatever, and he gave me the S-Raj to play.
Okay, so it wasn't that Vishnu John Swami was against guitar, because
I don't know. It wasn't a guitar mood. We already Goswami. Yeah, Hashigrami played guitar with the road show, but then when it turned into the bus thing and Tamal came back and everything, then it was like, you know, strict Vedic, not guitars. So Hashigrami graduated to the S-Raj, and I was given the S-Raj on the first day. So we weren't a guitar thing. It was not bona fide. It was bogus.
Brahma
Yeah,
Prabhu?
Prabhupada wanted, he said mridanga, cartels, and harmonium. Mostly mridanga cartels, but harmonium with bhajan. Then he gave Vishnu John Maharaj permission to add some other instruments. But as Dasara Sutta said, the drums and the guitars was the road show period. That wasn't the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan period.
Yeah, roadshow was a rock and roll
stopped the road
slash.
show.
Yeah, rock and roll kind of hippie presentation with guitars, drums, and electric keyboards. But the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party was strictly Vedic instruments, or these instruments from India that Vishnu John carried back. He rounded up a whole bunch of instruments that one year. What was it? 70? I guess it was 74 or something. They came back from Mayapur with all this new stuff and incorporated it. They had Santor.
I think the road show was called Transcendental Exposition. The first Transcendental Exposition, or the road show, was Vishnu John and the Rock and Rollers and the drama. That ended probably in 1973.
Yeah.
Then Vishnu John went on the road with just mridanga, cartels, and harmonium. Did festivals in parks and on the streets and on colleges, but no more guitars.
They also did state fairs from 73, 74. Before Goswami came back from India, they did state fairs a lot.
We did state fairs. Hashigrami, who had been with Vishnu John, who did the state fairs, he would book those state fairs. And we did the state fairs, and we sold incense and jewelry during the day. And then at night, we'd bring the deities out and lights. And we would have a big kirtan festival at the state fair. State fairs, county fairs, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, county fairs. Yeah, I know Brahma Prabhu, Hashigrami and you had lots of fun, but and creativity and stuff. But you know what? Hashigrami was completely brokenhearted when Tamal separated Hashia from his Vishnu John and sent you, sent him on your bus because Hashigrami, I told you we would stay up till 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning telling old bus stories. And so one night he just gets this look in his eyes, and I might crack up when I tell the story, crack up crying, not laughing. He just gets this look and just goes silent, because we were just talking about Vishnu John for an hour or two. He gets silent and he just tilts his head down and says, "I really miss my Vishnu John."
Yeah, he did. He loved Vishnu John. That goes along with the story I told about Tamal told when Tamal Krishna Maharaj, when I wanted to go back to Pittsburgh Temple after being a bus leader in training, and I was burned out already in a couple of weeks. Tamal Krishna Maharaj preached to me about the Bhagavad Gita and about doing things that didn't necessarily want to do. So yeah, I knew Hashigrami wanted loved Vishnu John and wanted to stay with Vishnu John. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj convinced him that the best thing that he could do, the best service that he could do, was to go for me, because I was clueless as far as any kind of festival situation. I was absolutely clueless. I didn't play any instruments. I wouldn't have known how to do anything. So when Hasya went with me, I believe that was the best service he could do, and I think he understood that as well. And we got along perfectly.
So he was like the general manager. He knew how to wrangle the instruments, the stage, the equipment, the festival.
Yeah, I didn't even have to think about it. When we pulled into a college, he would drive into it, and we'd pull up, and then he just took over and set it up. I didn't even have to think about it. I didn't even have to carry a cartel. So that was the best service he could do. Tamal Krishna Maharaj, in his wisdom, was able to convince him of that. And it took some convincing, because to be with Vishnu John, he was the sweet sauce, all right, and just a very wonderful, empathetic, dramatic person. It was a great inspiration. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj was, as far as the duo was concerned, he was the guy that got things done. When it was Vishnu John Maharaj, he had one bus. Within a year after Tamal Krishna Maharaj got there, he had 6 buses. Tamal Krishna Maharaj used to say, Vishnu John's kirtans were on the ground, and the first thing I did was I got a stage. So how are you going to get a stage? Well, he got a stage. He put them on, he lifted them up off the ground where they should be, where everybody could see them.
Yeah.
So he got a stage. He got a stage that folded up and came apart, and you could put it in the bay of the bus. So that's my thoughts on that.
Great. All right, Bo, does anybody have a story about Jayananda Prabhu?
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about Jayananda Prabhu. I came to San Francisco to be a hippie in 1971. And and I failed as a hippie, so I was going to join the movement. And I came to the temple, and I said, I want to join the temple. I had visited the temple in Pittsburgh, and Jayananda said, I'm sorry, you can't join. He says, what do you mean I can't join? He says, too many hippies have been joining the temple, and he says, and they can't. It's causing havoc. They're not trained. They can't be trained up. They're on drugs. They're problematic. You can't join. He said, Keshava Maharaj Keshava Das is the president, and he has made a rule that you have to come 2 weeks to the temple, or to the temple every day for 2 weeks if you want to join. And I said, really? Okay. And I said, what am I supposed to do with myself? He says, get a room in the hotel across the street, and then come every day for 2 weeks, and then you can join. So I got a room in the hotel across the street. It was a rundown hotel. It was $3 a day. And I paid a devotee named Shankarananda to come and wake me up for Mangal Arti every day so that I could make it there. And then Jayananda would greet me at the door, and he'd say, okay, day 1. And it would be day 2, day 3. All right. So I was on about day 12 when I chickened out. And I called my mom in Pittsburgh, and I said, Mom, I want to come home. I had that tendency, being a mama's boy. I said, Mom, I want to come home. She says, great. She sent me a ticket. I flew back to Pittsburgh. I got to Pittsburgh. I sat in my room. I didn't go out of my room for about 5 days. I looked out the window, and my mother said to me, okay, you can't sit in your room all the rest of your life. She said, either go join the Krishnas or get back into life. But I'm not going to let you sit in your room looking out the window. So I said, okay, Mom, Krishna's speaking through you. And I says, I'm going to go join the Krishnas. Then my mother called my dad and said, take him down to the temple so he can join the Krishnas. Well, my dad, he was really upset about it. So he drove me down, didn't say a word to me Didn't say a word to me until we got right in front of the temple. He said, if you do this, if you join the Krishnas, I'm not going to pay for your college anymore. He says, when you drop out of the Krishnas, you're going to either have to go to work in the mill like I am, or you're going to have to join the army. I says, that's my choices, Dad. Work in the steel mill, join the army, or join the Krishnas. He says, that's it. He says, because if you don't make it into Krishnas, you're going into the army or going to the mill. No more college for you. I says, okay, I'm going to take the Krishnas. So that's what happened. That's the story. But Jayananda met me at the door every day. He counted me in. He thought I was going to make the 14 days, and then I chickened out on him. So that's my story about Jayananda.
I've got a story. I've got a story about Jayananda.
When you came back, he let you in. Is that right?
When I came back?
Yeah. Because you only did 12 days. You didn't do 14.
Yeah, I didn't do 14. So instead of 14, I flew back to Pittsburgh. He was in San Francisco. So that was it. The next time I saw him was maybe in 1974 when I was on the BBT party. He was a lovely man.
But they let you join, obviously.
Well, in Pittsburgh, they let me join, yeah.
Okay.
Because I had been coming there. I had been coming for the Sunday feast for a while.
Okay.
So they let me join.
I've got a story about Jayananda. It'll take a couple minutes.
Jai.
Namam Vishnu Vadai Krishna Prasad Budale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. 1974, I joined Radha Damodar. And by 1975, end of 1975, I was burnt out to the max, but came in off the parking lot and ended up at West 55th Street. And Tamal Krishna was very much in charge, and he knew my situation, and he felt really sorry for me. So he made me roommates with Jayananda Prabhu in the, I forget what floor, but anyway, they're at West 55th. And so as a result of that, I got to go with him on that blue bus to county fairs, just for some reason, the two of us. Once again, I'm pretty sure it was because Tamal Krishna, I had an amazing relationship with him. Dark and light would be maybe one way to put it. Sometimes. So anyway, very quickly to finish this off, it was amazing to be with Jayananda because he acted like I could do. It was called International Cuisine. Let's see, International Vegetarian Cuisine. He had a booth that he'd set up at a county fair. Transcendental International Vegetarian Cuisine, something like that. I forget the exact name. So he had me cooking, and I would cook an entire broccoli. I wouldn't even break it up, and I'd put it in the batter, and I cooked the whole thing. And then I wouldn't think he was noticing, so I'd eat the whole thing. And I did that to the point where I became very sick, and he never called me on it. I did, stuff like that. And he had reason to really get heavy on me about, I was way off base, but I guess he felt sorry for me. He knew I was a basket case and that had been sent to him by Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So, and one time I said, I'd say to devotees on the bus, I'd say, I'm from a dysfunctional atheistic family. I was abused, blah, blah, blah. I'd say it like that. And the devotees on Radha Damodar would say, it's when you talk about that material world of problems that you went through, it's like you're in the stool room, you flush it, and you move out, and you go on with your life. And I started explaining my problems and my sad history to Jayananda. And he said, that must have been hard for you. And he totally captured my heart. There you go. Hare Krishna. I got to go to bed. It's late. I don't know how you can all stay up so late. God bless you. I love you, all you devotees, more than words can say.
Hare Bol. Hare Bol.
We had told our host that we were going to run this for 2 hours. It's now almost 3 hours that we're running this. And I really want to be okay with our host as well. So we can do this again another time if you don't mind. Continue, but we can go on for another 10 minutes or so.
How can we be notified about future sessions like this?
So these sessions are put on. Yeah, I mean, if you could just send us information about yourself, we can do that. Those of us who are on this, if you can just put yourself information on chat right now, then on the chat part, if you can put in your information, then we'll record the chat. In that way, we will send you information about more of these programs, because the Radha Damodar party programs, we're going to do more than one, because there's so many wonderful stories with Radha Damodar party. It's just so amazing. We don't want to lose out on all the wonderful nectar that's available, you know, that is our history, actually. This is our amazing history of ISKCON. And so please go ahead and put in your information.
Here's another idea for you all. We could do a whole meeting on Jayananda when his disappearance day is coming up.
That's a wonderful idea.
I spent 6 years of my life collecting Jayananda interviews, including his mother, his sister, a whole bunch of classmates. So if you want to do a Jayananda special, then we can do that.
That's actually a wonderful idea. It's just a question of letting us know when, and you know, we can arrange the program so that people can be told and people can come on and be part of the memories, you know.
Because actually, I'm the only person in the whole world who knows his whole life story from childhood all the way up to his death.
Nice, that's nice.
Because I got childhood photos from his mother and stuff. And see, look, here's Jayananda. Here's Jayananda, age 2. His mother gave me photos. So we're making a book and a DVD about Jayananda. So if you want to do that in, I believe it's May, let me know.
Wonderful. All right, Prabhus.
Nanda, may I say something?
Yes, please, Krishna Prabhu.
Except for Gauradas Prabhu, I knew all of these devotees in my first year or two in Krishna consciousness. And each one of them was so kind and so nice that they all helped me along. My name is Bhakta Curtis then. I'm Krishna Kripa Das now. And I just wanted to, on the air, thank each and every one of you, Brahma particularly, Sunanda, who I do keep in touch with, Dasrat Sutta. We've known each other for a long time. But just thank you all very much for what little bit you were able to add to my staying to Krishna consciousness. And I've still been here in Houston for 44 years now. So you had a lot to do with that. It was the foundation that built the whole relationship. Thank you again, Hare Krishna.
Hi.
Thank you so very much, Prabhu. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Brahma. Brahma is our star witness tonight, the only bus leader. And he's come out of the mothballs since 42 years.
One-headed Brahma. One-headed Brahma.
Where has he been?
Yeah. Jai, thank you very much.
Actually, thank you all of
That's
you.
very
for
sweet
coming
of you.
on. It's so nice. We're just blown away with all the wonderful words and all the wonderful emotions and memories. You know, living the past in a way that's very, very relevant today and very relevant to the future of Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said so many things about Krishna consciousness, saving this world in its darkest hour, and actually liberating the 3 worlds, what to speak of just planet Earth. So all of this contributes towards that in very, very significant ways. We're so fortunate to have you all still on the planet telling us about this. It's a real fortune, great fortune of ours. Thank you so very much.
Jai, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo, Haribo.
Gaur Nityananda Bo.
Haribol, Haribol.
Jai Gauranga, Jai Sachinandana.
Sachinandan.
Gauranga.
Jai Gauranga. Gauranga. Damian Prabhu, you can actually sign off whenever you're ready.
Sure, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.